Hi, Dr. Mary with 4 Points Family Chiropractic here in Austin, Texas. I am joining you briefly today to talk to you about hydration and how to really optimize it and why we should even care, why we should worry about it. So let's talk first about what hydration really is. It's not just water, it's kind of how your body's utilizing water to move electrolytes and signals through your body. Remember, water is the main thing that does a lot of that conduit activity for us. So it's really, really important for all of our different systems. It doesn't just stay in the stomach. And if you've ever just felt kind of like groggy or tired or had a headache and you're like, I didn't earn this, I didn't do anything to make this happen, often it's a hydration issue, and it just means that you haven't had enough water or enough electrolytes. Sorry, we're gonna have a guest here. So hydration, it's really just not about how much water you drink. It's about whether that water actually makes it into the cell and conducts the electricity the way that it's supposed to. Because remember, your brain also is electricity signals. So it's not just your water intake, it lives in between your cells, inside your cells, and it all comes from what we intake, right? So it goes from your stomach into your digestive system, into your kidneys, and then it gets dispersed through the body in the way that it needs to be. And your body will allocate it to the places that it's most needed. And so the systems all depend on whether or not the water makes it to where it's supposed to go, but your body will elect to use it for the systems that it needs it for most. And typically that's your nervous system and your kidneys. He's just going to be in it. So your proper hydration depends on your electrolytes, which includes your minerals, and that's what actually does the electrical charge for you. Your cell membrane function, and that's how the cells are getting information and nutrients in and out of the cell, and your hormone signaling. So things like your ADH, your aldosterone, and basically all your hormones depend on water to work. So it actually does quite a lot for us. So if you have water and your body just has water and not electrolytes, then it's kind of like putting your phone near a charger and not plugging it in. Like, you're close, you have all the ingredients, but the actual communication's not happening. So the electrolytes are what does that for us. And usually your body can just do that fine with water and a proper diet. But when we start to really get impacted by dehydration, it can't do it. And that's where we have to be paying attention and making sure we're assessing, and if we need to, modifying anything that needs it. So what are the electrolytes? Because that's typically the missing piece for people. So there's several. The obvious ones are sodium and potassium, but it's also things like magnesium and chloride. And those do a lot of work making sure that the cells are talking to each other appropriately. So what do they even do for us? Remember middle school science when we all had to do a model of the cell, and we're like sleeper agents, right? Somebody says the word mitochondria and we all say powerhouse of the cell. Do you remember the cytoplasm? It's like the water inside the cell that holds up and supports all of the other organelles inside. That's one of the big things water does. But remember, on the membranes of the cells, there were little gates that would open and close to get nutrients in and waste out. The sodium and the chloride are the things that make those gates open and close. So if the sodium and the chloride are not balanced the way that they're supposed to, you can have as much water as you want in your body. Those cells aren't going to communicate the way that they're supposed to. So that's why we want to make sure that your electrolytes are as balanced as they possibly can be. Water and electrolytes also regulate heart contraction and muscle contraction. So you know how if you have a really heavy workout, you'll end up getting cramps, usually in the calf, you'll have a Charlie horse in the middle of the night, or you have trouble just like stretching and moving your body the next day. Part of that could be dehydration, because the way the muscles contract and relax is regulated by hydration and by your electrolytes. So sometimes we'll have patients come in and they're talking about cramps, and we'll ask about hydration in addition to analyzing the nervous system, because the way the nervous system communicates is also through water. So if you're somebody who's having some like sluggish responses, or you know you're having a lot of cramps, it's definitely worth it to get your nervous system assessed as well. And it's part of the assessment that we do in our office. So we do a full neurological and orthopedic exam. We do a spinal exam, as well as any necessary x-rays and a nerve study. And then we follow it up with a review. If that's something that you know somebody needs to get, if they call in and they mention this Facebook Live and say the word electrolyte, instead of the $348 that exam normally is, we will offer a $97 checkup, just to make sure that the way the neurology is working is functioning as well as it can. The hydration and the electrolytes also are really highly responsible for maintaining your blood volume and your blood pressure. And the thing that we hear in our office often, particularly in the summer, which is when people are dehydrated, is that they'll get up in the morning and they'll really rapidly go from sitting to standing, and they get dizzy and they have to sit back down. Or they've been seated at a desk for a long period of time. Same thing, they go from seated to standing and they get dizzy. Sometimes that's a dehydration issue, and it's called orthostatic hypotension. So basically the feedback from your kidney to your brain that you're hydrated enough isn't correct. And it's because you're dehydrated. And what'll happen, or you don't have enough electrolytes really is what it is. And your brain says, oh, well, the heart can't handle keeping the blood pressure up high enough to maintain us standing. And if we fall, we're gonna hurt ourselves. So it puts you back down. And some people, they'll pass out if they go from sit to stand too much. There's a condition called POTS, and that's the issue. And usually those folks are low on electrolytes. They need to make sure that they're getting enough salt in their diet, which I think sodium generally has been something we've been cautioned away from, and I'll get to that. Regular table salt is not what you need. You need an electrolyte, because the table salt's going to dehydrate you more, which is really frustrating, because you'd think it'd be as easy as just adding salt to your food. It's not. You want to keep your salt levels low, your sodium levels, when you're cooking or when you're eating. But if you put Celtic sea salt or an electrolyte powder in, you're going to be able to get what you need. The other thing that water, hydration, and electrolytes do is it helps the brain cells communicate with each other. So your neurons in your brain communicate through something called a gap junction. And the way the gap junction works is with a sodium-potassium gate, and the chloride plays a role as well. So you just need your electrolytes to be correct for your brain signals to get through quickly and efficiently. Obviously, that's what we assess with the nervous system as well. We need the brain talking to the body, but the electrolytes make sure that that happens and the brain's talking to itself so that it's quick and efficient. So what do we do that depletes all of our electrolytes? The obvious thing in Texas here, thank you Texas, it's already in the 90s and sustained 90s, is the heat. And the humidity's also been really high this summer. I'm sure everyone's noticed. That does not keep us hydrated. That actually dehydrates us as well. When you're sweating, particularly if you're like me, I mean, I go outside and I'm thinking I'm gonna be out there for 15 minutes, and all of a sudden it's been 3 hours and it's a whole bunch of yard work and I've been sweating the whole time, and then I wonder later why I'm tired. It's because I got dehydrated and I didn't realize it was happening. So it's really, I mean, I also will be driving home and my AC kicks on about the time I get into my driveway. So you're dehydrating yourself without realizing it, just kind of existing in the South in the summer. So making sure that you pay very close attention to hydration in the summer is going to be something that I'm going to ask you to prioritize to make sure that you stay hydrated. The other things that we do are usually, whether we mean to or not, are elective. We've chosen them. And what I mean by that is things like alcohol, caffeine, too much salt. When we consume things in our diet that dehydrate us, we're playing a losing game. Like, we're trying to catch up as much as we can. So the suggestion that I make is, if you reach for coffee first thing in the morning, try not to. I've talked about this before when I talked about protein and making sure that you get enough protein in the morning. Instead, when you wake up, make coffee the third thing you put in your body. So the first thing should be 8 to 16 ounces of water. Chug it if you have to, just get it down. And then have a high protein breakfast. And then 30 to 60 minutes later, by all means, reach for a coffee. coffee doesn't do what we want it to do first thing in the morning anyway. We should be having it later in the day so that it doesn't trigger too much cortisol dump in our blood. So reach for water first. I just leave it by the bed, so it's the first thing that I see and consume. I also leave a sneaky little cup right by the coffee maker so that when I go for it, I am reminded that that is not the first thing I should be consuming. Just set yourself up for success there. Just hydrate first thing in the morning. The other thing that will dehydrate us is highly processed foods. Unfortunately, to a certain extent, that is unavoidable culturally. It's very available to us. Even foods that we consider low processed are still processed to a certain extent. There's preservatives. So try to eat as whole foods as you can and making sure that you're getting foods that are hydrating sort of by nature. Make sure things like citrus, avocados are really hydrating, fresh vegetables. If you're not going to have them fresh, have them steamed, and just make sure that you're getting good salt, which is Celtic sea salt, something like that. That's a higher level of mineral. You can also kind of hack it with water itself. We filter water here, thank goodness. But you can also get water that like hasn't been demineralized. I don't love having to pay extra for it, but it's something to consider if you are going to be like out and about and know that you're going to dehydrate. Just consider having water that's already mineralized. Chronic stress will also dehydrate us. It increases our mineral loss. Our body will leach minerals in response to high cortisol levels. So if you know you're somebody who's been under chronic stress or is anticipating acute stress, get ahead of it. Try to just stay as hydrated as you can. That's sort of a circular good thing to do for yourself as well, because if you're stressed, you kind of want your brain working as well as it can, and that'll just help, again, those neuronal gap junctions function the way that they're supposed to. So hydration, again, does a lot for you. The thing that I will run into a lot when I'm discussing this with friends, family, patients, is people be like, well, I didn't know I was dehydrated because I'm not thirsty. Thirst is one of the last things that will show up as a sign that you are dehydrated. If you get to the point where you are doing something and you're like, oh my gosh, I could chug an entire glass of water right now, you're already dehydrated. Like, go ahead and assume that you already are, and you just need to, again, get ahead of it. Like, honor the thirst, go ahead and do that, but that's when you would consider adding an electrolyte powder. I will warn you, I think some people kind of overuse the electrolytes. You don't have to do like an entire packet or chug a Gatorade if you're just like in an office sitting for long periods of time and you're not outside working. It's hard to get that electrolyte imbalanced. I like the element packets. Lemon habanero is my favorite. Sadly, that's been discontinued, but I'll put one of those packets in a gallon of water. Like, I really dilute it because I'm not working outside all day. Gatorade, I'm not a fan of. Gatorade, Powerade, I think there's too much sugar in there. That ratio, I think, is like for serious athletes, not for the everyday person. So if you are going to be using that to make sure your electrolytes stay balanced, watch how much you're consuming. You don't need the entire bottle, and electrolyte powder, just use more diluted than perhaps is recommended on the label. And again, you can make your own electrolyte water, a pinch of Celtic sea salt and some lemon juice, and you've pretty much got what you need as long as you have a balanced diet. So there's another way to do it without, spending a whole lot of money. But the way you really know that you're dehydrated, again, it happens at the cellular level. So you can also be underhydrated, right? So if you're somebody who's having fatigue at weird times, like you're just yawning at 2 p.m. or you're having that energy crash, instead of reaching for caffeine, which is going to just start the cycle all over again, try reaching for 8 to 16 ounces of water and drink that, and take a walk. Just move your body, because that'll help pump the electrolytes where they're supposed to go. It also helps pump your discs, which, again, if you know us, we're very into making sure that the discs get motion. That hydration, by the way, stays on the outside of the disc. And when there's a disc that's dehydrated because of a misalignment of the vertebra, when we get you moving in the correct way, that imbibition, that pumping motion that happens, is what pumps water back into the disc. It's why we ask you to walk after your adjustments. So if you're somebody If you know somebody who's having issues with a disc, like it's very obvious it's a disc issue, that's something that we check in our office. Again, they can come in, get a full assessment, any necessary orthopedic, neurological testing, any necessary x-rays, and a report of findings with the doctor. That's typically $348. If they mention this Facebook Live and say the word electrolyte, they can get it for $97 instead. Great way to come in and get checked. But that hydration is one of the big things. When you start care in our office, we do talk to you about making sure that you're fully hydrated. Another sign of dehydration is brain fog. And that's a very general thing that gives you information that something's not quite right in your body. But a good thing to try is trying some electrolytes, making sure that you're hydrated, see if it makes a difference in how well your brain fog is going away, if it's working a little bit more. Muscle cramps or tightness, as I mentioned, lightheadedness when standing, that's not normal. I hear it a lot. People are like, oh yeah, just stand up fast and I get lightheaded, it goes away. It's been that way for a long time. That's not normal. You want to make sure you figure out what that is and try to correct it as much as you can. The last thing we want is a fall. Fall risks are like our nightmare. Chiropractors hate fall risks. You should too. Dry mouth or lip. Usually after travel is when people will notice that, but sometimes you'll just be sitting there like, oh, my mouth is dry. That means you're already dehydrated. Just make sure that you're drinking enough water. And then your digestion, huge sign about whether or not you are hydrated enough to move. Fiber's having a moment right now. And I agree. I think we're under fibered, but if you are going to increase your fiber amount, you have to increase your hydration accordingly. You have to, or else you are going to get constipated, and it's because you are dehydrated. Water, fiber goes into your gut and absorbs water, right? So it expands, and that's what backs you up. So you have to have enough water in there to not only expand it, but also keep it moving. So constipation is a very obvious sign that there's a hydration issue. Just try to stay ahead of it. So some practical solutions for if you are underhydrated or dehydrated. You want to make sure you're doing it smarter, not harder. I think the habit a lot of people have is to wait until they're thirsty and be like, uh-oh, and then go chug a whole bunch of water. Don't do that. As I mentioned, start the day with water. Electrolytes if you have to. If you notice that you are somebody who's chronically dehydrated and you have a lot of these symptoms that I'm mentioning, just go ahead and put a little bit of electrolyte powder or Celtic sea salt or lemon and lemon juice in your water first thing in the morning. And don't chug it all at once. I know I talk to people about front loading your water so that you don't pee all night. That doesn't mean drink all of it in like a 3-hour period at the first beginning of the day. Just, have a lot of it in the morning or like a pretty good chunk, and then sip during the day. You want to keep your levels pretty consistent versus like flooding your stomach and then draining your stomach, flooding your stomach, draining your stomach. Because if you flood your stomach, particularly when you're about to eat, you'll mess with the acid that's in there, and that can affect your digestion as well. Sometimes people have like heartburn if there's too much water. Add electrolytes, pinch of sea salt. You can do the electrolyte packets, mineral rich foods. So things like leafy greens, avocados, citrus. I mentioned all of that. Sip during the day consistently, don't chug. And then make sure you are paying attention to electrolytes. I like to just have a few packets on hand. I usually keep them in my bag or my backpack or somewhere in my office when I know it's going to be really hot out, or when I'm going to have a heavy workout, when I'm going to exercise a lot, or if you're stressed or traveling. I'm sure we've all had the experience where we've been on a plane and the plane's landed and you're like, oh, I'm so dry and crusty. It's because of how dehydrated you get up in the air. That's recycled air. The atmosphere changes. Hydrate before the plane, hydrate after the plane, stay ahead of it. And then just try to avoid the sugary drinks. So overall, key takeaways: hydration is a cellular process, not necessarily a volume process. We talk a lot about how to decide how many ounces to drink. It's your body weight in pounds divided in half, convert that to ounces. That's great. It's a goal to hit. Make sure you're also making sure that it's quality water and that there's an electrolyte balance in your body. Again, pay attention to those symptoms that I mentioned. So the little experiment that I would invite you to try is for the next 7 days, start your day with 8 to 16 ounces of water. Make sure you're hitting your ounce goal based on the math of your body weight. Add electrolytes to at least 1 glass of water a day, and see how your digestion, your focus, and your energy feel. Pay attention to your muscles if you are an athlete and you're somebody who's working out regularly. Give that a try, see how you do. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We keep an eye on them. We're happy to answer them. If you have any questions and you see me in the office, definitely stop me. you all know I will just talk to you about it all day. So let us know if you have any questions. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the summer here in Austin. Stay hydrated.